Welcome back to Aligned and Alive. Have you ever experienced that feeling when you are standing in the middle of what appears to be a successful life, and then something inside of you whispers, "This isn't it"? My guest today knows that story intimately because she lived it. She built a wellness company, spoke at high-level events, had her own television segment and the sponsorships, and was miserable. Her body eventually said what her voice wouldn't, and it cost her her health, her hair, and nearly her sense of self. But here's where the story turns. The moment she chose herself over the story other people had written for her, everything began to shift. Her health, clarity, purpose, and power. And today she is a speaker, author, podcast host, and a singer, so much more on that, and is dedicated to helping impact-driven and spiritually led leaders wake up to who they are truly meant to be and bring their gifts fully into the world. She is the founder of Radically Aligned, and she uses storytelling the way the best teachers always have, as a map and medicine. It is an honor to welcome my dear friend, Deidre Sirianni.
Oh, I am so excited to be here with you, Chrissy. We've been talking about this for a year now. And yeah, I'm really, thank you for having me. I'm really excited to dive into our conversation today.
Oh, I can't wait. And amongst all of the, hooplas with mics, my mic went out, so I'm on my little headset. My Zoom went out, so you came to the table and got everything working on your end. So thank you so much for your pivot and patience.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it. Okay, so take us back to the moment you were standing in the middle of what looked like a successful life. However, you felt completely empty.
So it was about, I say 7 years ago, but this is about 10 years ago. I was standing in my kitchen and I was putting my fingers through my hair, as we do, ladies with long hair. And I realized that something fell off on the top of my head. So I grabbed my phone, I raced to the bathroom, I put it on camera mode, and I start angling at the back of my head, like, what's going on here? And I saw in the mirror that I had a bald spot that was a couple inches wide, a big circle on the top of my head. And I remember thinking to myself, how did this happen and how do I fix it? Clearly, the universe is trying to tell me something because it's going after my hair. And you might not be watching this, but I have really long hair and it's always been my thing. So I was freaking out. And so I went back to my kitchen for a moment to ground and to sit down. And that's when I heard this voice come out of me and say, if you don't listen to your soul, you're going to manifest cancer and die in the next year. Then I have a flashback to 5 years prior, the only other time I had ever heard this voice speak to me. And I'm outside, I have friends and family to both sides of me. My friend Marty is playing the guitar and he's singing the lyrics by James Twyman that goes, "It's beautiful, it's true." And I'm walking down the aisle with pink roses in my hands and a big smile on my face, about to marry the man that I think I'm going to spend the rest of my life with. And the same voice says, this just isn't going to work. Well, no one ever told me what this voice was, and it was a little inconvenient, right? I was like, no, we're just going to shove that down. And I did. I said, I do. And now I'm sitting at my kitchen table and I'm like, wow, I have 4 different types of autoimmune disease that at the time the doctors couldn't seem to help me with. I had chronic pain in my neck and shoulders, to the point where my massage therapist actually fired me. I didn't know they could do that, but they can. She just couldn't help me anymore. She's like, you need to do something different because this isn't working. And I had a vision of ending my life. I was so depressed. And every single time I was around my husband, he was always telling me who to be, how to be, what I can say, what I can't say, what I can wear, what I can't wear, who I can talk to, who I can't talk to. And I remember this one moment. It's probably like the biggest moment in the relationship where everything shifted for me. I was walking out of our home and I was so excited. I just got a new job in television. And previous to that time, I was working in TV and radio. That was my past career. And I was practicing the intro and the extra for the segment I was doing live. And he puts his hand on my shoulder and he leans in real close and he says, don't say anything dumb. I don't want you to look stupid on TV. And I was sitting at my kitchen table and I was like, oh my gosh, could it be that this entire time, ever since I walked down the aisle, said I do, and ignored this voice, that my soul has been speaking to me through these symptoms of disease, but I just haven't been listening? So I remember in that moment making a vow to myself that I was going to get radically honest. I was going to have courage to look at myself in the mirror and say, hey, listen, you co created this. It's not all one person's fault. Like, you didn't listen to that voice among other voices and, intuitive nudges. And the last thing was I made a vow to show up and take massive inspired action. And so that brought me down the journey of studying deeper with shamans, studying deeper in the healing work that I was already in for close to a decade at the time. I just was ignoring one main area of my life, my relationship. And it brought me down the path of healing those three out of the four autoimmune diseases within just 3 months. I was able to heal naturally through actually listening to my soul. My depression went away. My food sensitivities went away. My chronic pain in my neck and shoulders went away. And then eventually, I had the courage to finally walk away from a mentally and emotionally abusive relationship that I had been in for 8 years. And now today, I help people transform their pain, their trauma into their greatest gifts for humanity through speaking, through creating conscious business of impact, and actually saying the hard things and doing the hard things to live a life of being radically aligned, essentially.
Woof. Thank you so much for sharing. I feel so many people can relate to the story, to the experience of ignoring those whispers. We hear them so often all the time, daily, really, especially if you're really tapped in and understand this. And it's the constant of, ignorance. I'm not going to subscribe to that because am I making this up in my head? Is this really real? Or is it a story I'm telling myself that's not accurate, right? And I always say the body keeps the score. Like, there's no way of denying that. Your body will tell you exactly where you stand. So you can't logic your way out of many situations that are already coming to the surface. So I love that you shared that in the sense that it's just confirmation that we have to become more aware of what we're feeling. And also, I feel so important. This is, part two of our environment. Our environment will absolutely have either a positive effect or a negative effect on how we feel, how we show up, our mental health, our spiritual health, emotional, physical, every aspect. So kudos to you for showing up and recognizing that and having the self-awareness and the courage, more importantly, the courage to face the head on. A lot of people don't.
Well, it's hard to make a change in our lives when we don't want a disruption. It's like, well, if I do this thing, my life's going to blow up. Or maybe my parents or my family or the people that I surround myself with are telling me the opposite. Like, I remember I got really into personal development during this time, during our relationship, because my default setting, and this is actually really common with women, and, more women than men have autoimmune disease. I don't know the exact statistic, but it's significantly higher than men because we internalize things. We're like, oh, I need to be better. I need to take this on. I need to take on this burden. So for me, anytime anything was not working in the relationship, I'm like, I have to be better, which is good because I got into personal development, but I was going to these personal development seminars and I'm like, I just have to take more responsibility. I have to push through it. I need to overcome this. But really, at the end of the day, it wasn't, I needed to overcome anything. I needed to get out of environments that were keeping me small and holding me back from being who I really am. And that wasn't really something that was talked about too much, but I remember consulting in people and people being like, oh, you're married. You're married. You need to make it work. And it's like, well, at what cost do we have to make things work? And just like you said, Chrissy, the body keeps score. And one of the very first things that I learned when I started studying with my very first shaman, when I was like, I don't know, 20-ish, was that the symptoms of the body are messages from our soul trying to tell us something that we have not been listening to. And when we hear the message, not just hear it, But when we actually do something about the message often goes away, which is the symptom. And I used to think this was so BS. I was like, oh, I don't know. Right. And then I started implementing it in my life everywhere except for things related to my relationship. And suddenly all of these symptoms went away when I was like, oh, I'm ignoring this part of me, or I'm not allowing this part of me to be seen, or I'm essentially numbing or disconnecting a part of me in order to fit into this box. And when I started doing that work, everything healed. And it's like the soul communicates through symptoms of disease, and it is the fastest way to know and see if you are out of alignment or anyone else is out of alignment. Because as we know, most disease is actually lifestyle related and it's related to stress. So clear up the stress, the places we're out of alignment, your body will heal itself a lot of the time.
I believe that fully. And I'd love to have you just take us down what your definition of alignment is. It's such an overused word nowadays. And of course, my podcast is called Aligned and Alive, and your company is Radically Aligned. And so we both share a very similar vision. But for the listeners and viewers, could you just really get crystal clear on what true alignment looks like?
hmm So, alignment to me, so the company Radically Aligned, it's about embodied leadership, essentially, as the foundation of what I do and what I've always done, whether it's more like the spiritual aspect or like the business or the relational. But essentially, there's different pillars. So, if you look at the logo, it's a triangle with a circle around it. And there's like kind of a flower in the middle of the logo of of Radically Aligned. And essentially, it's kind of funny because I was actually at a Bread and Burchard event, years and years ago, probably 10 years ago when I started this company. And I was sitting under a tree and I was meditating. I'm like, oh, like I want to know, like, what is the name of my company supposed to be? Right. And then, no joke, Chrissy, a bird pooped on my shoulder. And and then the words radically aligned came, and then of course like the initiations into getting into alignment came, right? So anyways, had to tell that story. But the triangle, the top of the triangle is truth. Okay, so the top triangle point is truth. And truth to me is living in truth, being truthful. And when we have truth to ourselves, to the people around us, we clear out everything that doesn't belong. So
Mhm.
there's a quote that says something along the lines of, you'll never lose something that's meant for you by being who you are or saying the truth. And I really do believe that. So truth to me is spiritual awakening. Truth to me is being in integrity with yourself. Like I had to get into integrity with myself because my body was out of integrity with my decisions and I wasn't wanting to be fully truthful. So that's the healing. It's all of those things. So it's like, hey, what is the truth? And how can I operate in the truth and continue to discover and live my life in truth? The second pillar is love, living and leading from the heart. So for me in leadership in life is if I'm giving someone a truth or I am operating in a way, is it actually coming from a place of love and care? Or is it coming from somewhere else? So there was this movement that I noticed on social media. Maybe you noticed this too, but it's like, speak your truth. But
Yeah.
a lot of the truth that was being spoken was actually very harmful. And it was like to like push people down and tell them where they stand. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm. I remember it.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
anything that's not coming from a place of love is actually not truth, it's distorted. So that's a way of kind of clearing up how we show up in life. And also there is a quote that goes, what's good for you is actually good for everyone else. But if what's good for you is not good for everyone else as far as speaking your truth and all of that, there's usually some distortion there. So again, coming back to alignment and truth. And then there's our relationships. Our relationships essentially are the quality of our life and how we feel. So looking at the relationships around us and like, do these people actually want me to succeed? Do they actually want the best for me? And unfortunately, and I'm sure you've had these experiences too, but I've had many times in my life, it happens every so many years, where I look around, I'm like, oh, that person doesn't actually want the best for me and that there's some weird energy going on here. And then for me, clearing that out of the way in a loving way, it doesn't necessarily mean there's a conversation, but really looking at the relationships that we have. The next pillar is purpose. For me, purpose has been probably the most important thing in my life because when I'm on purpose, everything else comes into alignment. When I'm not on purpose, man, everything feels out of alignment. So for me, knowing what my purpose is every day, building something meaningful, being on purpose on a day-to-day basis, like there are 4 questions that I used to ask myself every single day. And I actually had an accountability for partner for about 5 years on this. And the questions are, how do I want to feel? How do I want to show up? What am I committed to? And what's my desired outcome? Those 4 questions I would ask myself every single day before starting the day. And I would also ask myself and my clients that before I would go into session with them, or before I go and speak on stage, or before I would have like a difficult conversation, I would check in to how do I want to feel? Because I get to choose that most of the time. Of course, there's subconscious stuff, but it brings you into alignment. And then just being on purpose and doing the work that you're here to do, because I do feel like we all have a purpose. And when we're on purpose, things that are not for us naturally clear out of the way. And then I know there's a lot of pieces that I'm sharing here, Chrissy.
Keep going. Keep
Okay.
listen.
So those are the 3 points of the triangle. Then there's a circle around the triangle. That's the wisdom that we're always gaining as we evolve. And it's constantly in circulation. And that's the wisdom that I'm learning in my life. Part of my purpose and being a human in this world is we're supposed to share that wisdom. We're supposed to help other people. And then the flower in the middle is self-expression, which we could say is my music, is speaking on stages. It's really being our unique self and expressing that into the world without trying to be like everyone else, because we all have a unique expression. So when we look at all of those things, like, your relationships, your health, your healing, your trauma, all of those pieces, your purpose, your impact, your self-expression, and the wisdom, when we put all those things together, that's how you get into radical alignment when you're living that. And then your values, there's different layers to it.
So good. And what comes to mind after hearing all of that is taking radical ownership. Like that's the very first thing I think about is not making excuses, not allowing yourself to sit in victimhood, not, going down the old story and the old programs that are keeping you stuck and looping. And so, yes, taking radical ownership. And I like even creating the list of, how am I showing up? Like, where can I, where am I? Like, I feel like when we take full and complete ownership, not only is it so liberating, when you own your side of the street, then you can start moving forward and create monumental shifts in your life and experience even those quantum leaps. Like it doesn't have to take forever. It doesn't have to be this 5-year process of becoming, right? Like you can actually step into a whole new way of being purely by the story you keep telling yourself. So I think that's just a great segue going into it, because you are such a fabulous storyteller. Is, what does that look like? And when you have worked with people and we've worked together, and I can speak to our experience, which was amazing. And I can speak on that quickly, which was I was preparing for a women's event last year in New Mexico. It was 300 ladies, and I was the closing keynote speaker. And Deidre and I had been in an elite mastermind together. And so naturally, I gravitated towards her and said, "Can you help me?" And I remember our first call together, and you had said, "What are you thinking of speaking on?" And I said, "Well, this, and this." And then you brought me down a few great self-inquiry questions on my life path and how it's unfolded. And it was in my 20s that we pinpointed a very, very traumatized situation with an ex-boyfriend I had at the time. And we created a story out of that. And through that process, there wasn't a dry eye in the audience. It was so compelling. So I'm a huge advocate of storytelling and creating that emotion within others to really experience a shift inside, not just in your mind, but in your body.
I love that. And it was so fun working with you. And it was so fun working with you. And that story is something that, the thing is, as we evolve, as we grow, as we become more well-known, or even on our way of stepping into thought leadership, whether that's writing a book, getting on stage, starting a podcast, People actually want to know our character. Like you can be the most amazing person in your industry of what you do. And when people work with you, have the biggest transformation. But if you don't get people to actually feel you on a deep level and resonate with you and trust you, it doesn't mean anything. And that's why so many amazing healers and people who are doing great work in the world are not getting the recognition or the connection that they deserve because they're not actually sharing stories. So on the question of stories, there's kind of two questions that I'm hearing here, or maybe I'm making them up, we don't know. There's two questions. The first question is, how do we deal with stories? And I want to kind of go to that secondly. And then how do we tell our stories, or what's the importance of storytelling? Is that right?
Yep, exactly.
Okay, perfect. So the first part is with storytelling, what I find with people is most people don't want to tell the story that is meant to be told. And I'm going to go ahead and say it. I shared a very vulnerable story recently on social media, and it was around something that I kept internal for 7 years. Mainly because it was a very vulnerable topic. It was around being a victim of sexual abuse. And it was very, very close to home in a way where I was protecting. I wanted to protect the people that would be affected by the story. That was a big thing for me. But also there was a layer of shame around it because I'm like, well, I'm a capable woman who is an entrepreneur. I'm strong. I'm independent. I have a good head on my shoulders. How could I end up in a relationship with someone who would harm me in this way and do that to me? And so for me, there was this layer of shame and not wanting to talk about it, even though I've talked about trauma in the past. I did my TEDx on trauma, which is kind of a similar experience to what I shared about. But with this one, it was close to home because it was with a man I lived with, a partner of mine at the time, 7 years ago. So for me, what came to the surface, and I know social media is maybe a little bit different than speaking on stages, but what happened for me was I felt this call inside of me. All this stuff was coming up with the CNN reports and women and all of the things that were coming to the surface. It was like, I need to share this story. And I feel like I've healed from it. Like it was 7 years ago. I've done a lot of trauma work. I used to teach on trauma. And I went to go record it the first time and I couldn't speak basically. I was like, I actually messaged you, Chrissy, and I was like, I don't know if I should post this. Is this too much? And then I lean into my resources, because I am a professional and I want the message to be delivered in the right way, not the wrong way. And there is a right and a wrong way to share vulnerable stories. Um, so I sat with it for a few days and then I recorded it from a place of, okay, I'm calm, I can deliver the message and it is healed, but I've never said it out loud before in that way. So it brought up a lot of emotion. So the first thing is the stories that you don't want to tell are essentially skeletons in your closet that are going to keep you from actually being in the spotlight in your business and your life, and are going to hold you back from the confidence and the impact that you truly want. It's just fact. So, am I going to say, oh, I should have told this story 7 years ago? Absolutely not. I was not in a place to even fully acknowledge that that's what happened to me. I was not in a place where I had healed. But the vulnerable stories, the truthful stories that we have shame around, when we have the courage to tell them and be fully seen in like that space of truth, that is when the people that are for us are going to be like, oh my gosh, like that happened to me, or thank you for sharing that. They're going to trust us. They're going to know our character. They're going to feel more connected to us, and it's going to make an impact. And from that post, I got so many messages. And every single time I share something really vulnerable on a podcast or on a stage, after I have refined sharing the story, because there is a process to actually sharing the story in a way that's concise, it's going to be received in the right way, but also you're not breaking down, because that's actually can feel really kind of like you're dumping on your audience and you don't want to be that person. But there's this level of embodiment that happens when we share the story. We've worked through the stuff. We actually become the leader that we want to be because we've integrated the parts of ourselves that we had shame around. And we're like, hey, this is who I am. This is my experience. and I have nothing to hide. And people trust that. So that kind of answers your first question, I think. Any questions around that, or what do you have?
No, I couldn't agree more. And I just referenced my own experience of what I've shared with you privately that happened, last year. And I feel that there's so many gifts that we're given. And so this is how we can have, when you go through obviously the healing process, when you've already, you're not ignoring or bypassing it, but you're actually going through it. Mine was to sit in stillness for 3 months, go off social media, and really take some time to myself to really process and not bypass anything. It's a very, very important part of I believe, the process and unfolding. And then once you go through that, you can use that as such incredible value for your audience and your next level leadership. Like that's what I've seen now. And there's this fire in my belly that is coming to the surface like I've never had before, because to your point, where I don't have any shame around anything. I have released all of that. We are humans trying to do our very, very best. And along the way, it may look a quote unquote a little messy, right? But at least we're still showing up. At least we're healing and rising above and trying to help others do the same. And so when you have that mindset and that embodiment of purpose and where you're coming from, you mentioned character early on. I couldn't agree with you more. Such a huge point. It really does allow you to feel so free and not hold back to deliver that message that so many people really need right now. And yours was given through social media a week ago, which I thought was amazing. And, it hit me, just to hear you go through that. And you never want a friend to have to go through that, and how many people you're helping throughout the process. So yes, I couldn't agree with you more. I feel that a lot of people don't have the courage to tell those skeletons in the closet because fear of being judged. Maybe it's too much, right? However, when you're around the right people, they look at it with a totally different lens, and it's not a lens of judgment or shame.
I'll tell you, every single person I've worked with who has told the vulnerable story, of course, there are stories that you may not be ready to share, and that is okay. It will happen over time. But all of the companies, all of the individuals I've worked with who have told the difficult stories, their business blows up. They get so much recognition. They get so many opportunities. All of a sudden, one speaking opportunity turns into a podcast tour with the top podcasters in the world, turns into magazine features, turns into all these things because those people have actually, guess what? Reached out to them because it's refreshing. The truth is refreshing. And if we're willing to tell the truth, in a way that's coming from more of a healed place than a raw place, because there's that too, and it can feel like trauma dumping on people. And it's not, I wouldn't hire someone that trauma dumps on me. I don't know about you.
Nope. Been there.
Yeah, we've been there, right? But there's something refreshing about it. And more than ever, especially in the world that we live in, people crave truth, people crave people who are genuine and authentic and show who they are. I would rather work with someone, and I would trust someone more, even if I don't agree with them, who is fully truthful than someone who acts like their life is always perfect and they're not really. Because here's the thing, we can tell energetically, we have an energetic field around us, all of us, and we can pick up things that are in people's fields, just like belief systems. And we'll talk a little bit about, changing people's narratives in a second here. So if I'm around you, I remember being at the mastermind that you and I were both in, and I was like instantly like, oh, Chrissy's like, we're going to be friends. There was a few other people that instantly I was like, there's a resonance here, right? And there's a level of depth here. And I was like, okay, we're going to be friends. I can just feel that. But when you're on stage or when you're leading a company or you're putting yourself out there, if you are holding a lot of your truth back in your life, people, even if you're giving a presentation, even if you're selling something amazing, even if you're doing a lot of things in alignment in your life, but you're not actually sharing the truest essence of who you are, and you have a lot of the shame in the closet, people, for some reason, might not trust you and they might not know why. And this happens all of the time with speakers and people putting themselves out there because they're not actually sharing the truest essence of who they are. And people pick up on that on a subconscious level. And they're like, they're holding back, or I don't know why I don't want to work with them. They said all the right things. They're smart, but there's something lacking here. And it's the connection, it's the trust, it's the someone actually being okay to be fully seen in who they are. Does that make sense?
100%. And I think of so many people over the years that I have hired to work with that what you just spoke on, I felt that early on. We talked about ignoring our soul whispers, aka intuition or inner GPS, our inner compass.
Mhm.
And, you know, that does create wisdom. You do that enough times over the course of several years, you start really looking at things totally different. So I love that you share that. And truthful and healed is what I took away from that. More importantly, stop going to people or seeking people out that are trauma bonding, that are not truthful and are unhealed. I mean, that'll keep you stuck in looping in cycles like never before.
And a really good way to see if someone is not healed, as far as you working with someone, is if they're telling you not to feel something or not to be yourself. And I won't mention containers. I don't even remember the containers I was in years ago, but the containers I was in, I was actually trying to process some trauma at the time. And it was like, oh, bypass, like, oh, go here, do this. The truth is, if you have trauma in your system or shame in your closet or something that you're working through, you actually need to bring it to the surface to acknowledge that it happened. And then with trauma, it has to be completed, because trauma is essentially anything that gets frozen in time that's incomplete. So if someone keeps stifling you from actually going through a process of feeling your feelings or acknowledging what happened, that's kind of a manipulative tactic to actually prevent you from coming into your own truth. It's part of the process of unraveling who we are and what is for us and what's not for us, and to actually access the wisdom inside of us, because unhealed trauma blocks us from actually connecting to our intuition. It distorts reality. So we have to actually be truthful with ourselves and have safe spaces or safe people to work with who are going to be like, okay, like, yeah, like this is coming up for you, and, work through whatever's happening so that we can come out on the other side.
Thank you for sharing that. So good. Rewind that, listen to it again, because that's exactly what the process looks like, especially nowadays with so many gurus online and spiritual leaders and Reiki masters and all the things, right? It's in the spiritual space. And there's a lot of smoke and mirrors, a lot of smoke and mirrors out there. And so, I think Gabrielle Bernstein at one point said many years ago that she didn't feel you needed to be completely healed to lead. And I subscribed to that thought for a while until I went through it myself on the receiving end of hiring these practitioners and therapists and leaders that were truly unhealed. And it only leaked onto me and kept me in a cycle that kept me small, kept me sick, kept me looping and going crazy, so to speak.
Mm.
So thank you for sharing that. I think that's so important to really understand.
Mm. And going to your other question around how do we change stories, I know this is something that you and I have voiced on it back and forth on, and I so appreciate, is a lot of the time we'll have a story about ourselves, right? And the story is, I'm thinking of a client of mine recently who had an experience with a healer. I won't say too much about it outside of this person was told the healer can't help them and they need to go to a lot of therapy. And I was like, you actually don't need to go to a lot of therapy. You actually just need to practice being seen and being okay with where you're at in your emotions, because our emotions aren't actually wrong. Our emotions teach us what is for us and what's not for us. And when we actually feel our emotions, which should only be like 90 seconds, is how long emotions will last if we actually give ourselves permission to feel it, we have wisdom on the other side and clarity. So anyone who's like, whoa, like you have a lot going on, they're actually kind of avoiding themselves and don't have the tools for you, which is totally fine. But emotions are okay. I've had a lot of big emotions come up recently with everything going on in the world. And it's like, no, this is sacred rage. I want to be a part of the change. I want to help women. I want to protect women. I want to educate men. I want consequences to certain things that are going on. So emotions aren't bad. But as far as changing a story, it's like, well, what is the story you're telling yourself? And how do we know the story that we're telling ourselves around something as we look at the result that we have? So if I'm working with someone and let's say they're like, hey, I want to, make multiple six figures or $1 million or whatever it is from speaking. Well, let's look at the results that you've got so far in your life or your business with money. And let's look at the results that you've got so far with potentially being seen. Well, you're inconsistent here. So if every time this happens in your life, you do this, what would the story be that is in resonance with the action? Okay, so you have a fear of being seen. You have a fear that if you are seen, you are going to be attacked or this thing's going to happen to you. So the story is it's not safe to be seen. Okay, great. That is the vibration that you're operating at. And the result is aligned with that. Okay, good. Now we know it. Now with money, it's, money doesn't stay, or it's not safe to have more than what I truly want or what I need. That was a story of an old client of mine. Her father yelled at her one day, and she shared this in a video testimonial that's public, so I can share this. Her father yelled at her when she was a child when she asked for more. So her business was stuck at a certain level financially because she felt on a subconscious energetic level it's not okay to ask for more. So no matter what she did with speaking, books, all the things, this is again years ago, nothing would shift until we actually changed the story, which was it's not safe to ask for more. It's not okay. Removed and, cleared a lot of the underlying wounds there. The new story is, there's more, there's so much to go around. Like I am not being selfish, or I don't remember the exact story that we did with her, but we did some wound work. But the new story would be there is an infinite amount of abundance and it's available to me and everyone else. And by me having more abundance, I am not taking that from anyone else. Like I'm actually giving other people permission to ask for more, to have more. And as a result of having more abundance, I can actually help more people. And I'm a good person. And the more people I help, the more people that I help and they help. And that's actually how I create a ripple effect. And having more money and abundance gives me more energy and resources to help more people have jobs that they love and quit their 9-to-5s and do what they really love. So it's like changing the story changes the vibration, changes the result. Yeah.
All day long. I mean, it really is. And I will add this part though. So if they're just changing the story and not seeing a new result, it's stuck in their body. It's stuck in their tissues. The trauma is stuck and they're not able to really find themselves in alignment with the story that they're telling themselves.
It's been shown, and I know that you know this because of what you do, it's been shown that repetition, emotion, and visualization is the fastest way to actually change a core belief system. And that 97% of our behaviors are in our subconscious, which means they're automatic. We don't really think about them before we do them. And it's actually been shown that every single action we take, not some of them, all of them are driven by emotion. Well, where does emotion come from? It comes from a belief. So if we want to shift a belief, we need to tune into the emotion and the energy, and we have to have repetition and visualization so it feels like it's already done to reprogram that belief system, typically for like 21 days. If it's a deeper unconscious belief that's happened, I think before the age of 2, I could be wrong on that part. It might be like 45 days or something. But if you do that for 21 days and you visualize yourself where you want to be, you tell yourself the belief system and you give yourself permission to feel it, you do that every day, you are going to be on the up and up with changing that belief, which is going to change your emotions, which is going to change your actions, which is going to change your results, which is going to change your whole damn life.
It does change your life.
To the choir here,
Yeah, I mean, it really is that simple, right? Like, I mean, it really is that simple. And this is why I'm so obsessed with what I do and with recordings. When I listen to a recording in the morning, at night, I'm reprogramming my mind constantly to the life that I do want to live, that I actually am living currently. So yeah, it works. It's not just woo-woo. It absolutely does work.
It works. It's fact.
So what goes into the process of, in your opinion, for someone to start telling themselves a new story and believing in it? I think this is the most important part of it. So for instance, somebody comes to you and says, Deidre, I want to make $500,000 next year because of the work you do. We'll say speaking on stages, right? And I know you have the business strategy, you can provide all the things. However, that's great and all. However, business strategy alone isn't going to really sell it. So this is where inner work really comes into play. So how do you start that process for them to start believing that new story?
hmm Well, the first thing is someone wouldn't come to me if they didn't actually feel that they wanted it and that it was for them. Like, I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe in someone just showing up and being like, hey, I want to do this. Well, if you want it, it's for you. And let's make a plan. Let me show you all of the people that I've supported to reach this goal. Let's break it down and make it so easy that you can see exactly how it's going to happen. Because I think a big gap for people with any goal, and I know, myself years ago, let's say 10 years ago when I started this business, if someone were to say, hey, you can make X amount of dollars a year or X amount, $10,000, plus every time you're on stage, I would be like, whoa, that's a lot. Like I would have some stuff because I wouldn't know how to do it. I wouldn't see a breakdown. I wouldn't see a plan. So actually breaking this down for people and showing people how they can do it, making a plan, that's a part of the visualization. And then getting them into their future self, like, okay, when you're here, this is what it's going to look like. And then also, if you were that future self now, what decisions would you be making differently? Who are the people that you would be surrounding yourself with? Who are the people you would start listening to and stop listening to? How would you dress? How would you act? What would you say yes to? What would you say no to? So it's a bit of getting more clarity. And whenever I do that, I remember years ago, I started to get on some really big stages with the top people in my industry who have millions of followers. And guess what I did? I actually did hypnotherapy because I was bumping up against a lot of, oh my goodness, like, what am I going to talk about next to so and so who has millions of followers and these huge audiences consistently? I did hypnotherapy on a monthly basis to help with my subconscious because I knew I needed support. I had all the other things going on. I had the plan. I was already doing the things. It was just that next level. And our next level has these guardrails that wants to keep us, where we have been. And so I think a big thing is getting the right support. I don't do everything for people. I can't be the one-stop person for everything. We do belief system work. We do look at results and I help people overcome challenges with different processes I have from being a master coach for over 10 years and all the work that I do. But at the end of the day, a lot of our emotions and fears dissolves from just taking massive inspired action. Like, oh, you think you're going to suck on stage? Well, why don't you do it? And then you rip off the Band-Aid. My first time on stage, I don't remember. Like my friends told me I did a good job, but I'm pretty sure I blacked out. I mean, I was present. I wasn't like on the floor blacked out, but like my friends told me I did a good job. And I probably didn't, but because of that, yes, over a decade ago, now I've spoken on stages around the world and et cetera. Like I've built this life that I love. But I think just taking massive inspired action is what dissolves the fear and a lot of the things that get in the way. And then through getting the results, sometimes through massive inspired action, the opposite kind of doing just the subconscious work is that result that creates the new emotion can actually affect how we feel and how we believe, what we believe about ourselves and also the reflection of others. So getting into the right environment, doing the things, of course, subconscious work too, like, of course, do all the things, but those things back at you can be like, oh, I am great. Oh, I am a good speaker. Oh, I can do this. Oh, I just made one of my clients made $20,000 from her very first talk on stage. And it's like, well, great. Now do it again and again and again and grow that. It's like do the thing and then get the result. And then through the result, it's like, well, that's actually giving you emotions that are positive, that are aligned with how you want to feel and where you want to be. And that is also affecting your beliefs.
Agree. I call this receipts and what was the other one? It just blinked out of my mind. Oh, I call this receipts and reps.
Oh,
So you get the reps in, you create the receipts for the very thing that you want to become, right? So like that's exactly it. And it becomes easier and easier and easier. And this is how we become embodied in the very thing we now speak on. And that's my biggest hang up with so many speakers and leaders right now is that we are in the world of AI, ChatGPT. And for anyone who wants to appear that they are the thought leader in their industry, it's so simple right now to go and have AI create a script for you to pop it on and and present yourself as such. But how many leaders, like truly, Deidre, how many leaders out there are completely embodied with what they do? How many of them are living and breathing the very thing they're teaching? So I think that's really important part of it as well. Is it's just so easy to be good. It's so easy to be great right now. It really is because the bar is not set really high when you think about the level of talent out there.
I totally agree with you. And I feel like when I really look up to leaders in the world, there are only a handful of people that I actually see where I'm like, oh, yeah, I can feel them. They're doing the work, they're living the work. And if we're not living our word or living our work, we really are out of integrity with the work, whatever that work is for us. And I will say, every time I'm stepping into a new level of visibility or a new body of work that's coming out in the world or that I am feeling called to bring out, there's always the initiation.
Yes.
Always. And I think we want it to be too easy. Oh, there's an initiation. Oh, it's not for me. No, no, the initiation is how you become embodied. It's not the other way around. You can't out prepare the initiation.
Yeah, that's so good, which is a great segue into your first album coming out.
Oh my gosh, I know. It's so crazy.
Speak on that. Tell us more.
So, I went through a pretty traumatic breakup about 7 years ago. And I remember just deciding that I was going to start writing about it and journaling about it and processing it because it was one of those relationships where I knew it was over and I needed full no contact, but I was still in love with him and the idea of our relationship. And at the time, I considered him my best friend. So it was like that duality of this isn't good for me. So I need to honor that, but also I want to be in it. How can I take this energy and pour it into something that's not going back, that's not calling him, that's not letting him back into my life. So I started writing, I started journaling, and then I started doing some poetry. Not that I shared any of this with anyone, thank goodness, because it probably wasn't very good. And then I guess it was like just 3 years ago, I had a vision, and visions to me are always my higher self telling me this could be for you if you want it. If you want it, you have to choose it because I think that we can have a lot of visions come to us and some of them are for us, some of them aren't. We have to ask ourselves, is this actually in alignment with how I want to live my life? And I had this vision of singing on stages. And I'm like, oh, well, I already speak on stages, but singing. And I had a guitar and I was like, I don't even play the guitar. And I'm the type of person my whole life, like, I've never wanted people to hear me sing because I always had this belief system of like, I'm not a good singer. Right. So I had this vision. And then I was in LA for a mastermind that I was in, and I met this producer and this crew, and we ended up ending up in a castle in a recording studio, and we were singing, and I was super shy, but everyone was super into it and just like open to like whatever happened. And then there was something that unlocked in my voice where all of a sudden I was like, I'm going to be a singer. And it was just this moment of I'm going to be a singer and I wasn't good and I'm still a work in progress. Like I'm definitely not like an Adele, but I started writing music and started recording music and essentially a big part of my life. And I really believe that transforming trauma into a gift is like part of my life's work for myself, but also helping others do the same through like all the things, getting themselves out there. The relationship department has always been really challenging for me. I've always had like a lot of trauma, a lot of trust and mistrust, a lot of experiences where it's been really challenging to process it. So for me, music has been a way to express that and tell the stories that are very difficult, like writing in my journal and bringing it to life. And now I have like 7 or 8 songs, and I'm going to be releasing different parts of my musical album this next year. And it's not about me being the perfect singer or having like someone else's voice. It's about being authentic and real and bringing people into the journey. But anytime I've sung the music, men cry, women cry. And it's been very, it's been really special, but it was really scary starting to put it out there. So it's been the way that I've been able to process some difficult things in my life with men. And it's basically like my journal out loud in music.
Girl, you're the next Taylor Swift. I mean,
We'll see.
think about it. It's such a cathartic way to move through life experiences that weren't so warm and fuzzy. Like if I could sing, I would sing in a heartbeat. God did not bless me with a beautiful singing voice, although I'm sure I could probably nurture that. I had a podcast guest tell me years ago that if you have a good voice, you can absolutely nurture it into a good singing voice, but to
Mhm.
be continued. So I love that you have that outlet. It's very, I'm sure, therapeutic for you to release what's been stored inside your body and just get it out there.
It's been a journey of vulnerability and truth telling in a way that I've never allowed myself to be
Yeah.
seen because I've always been like, I'm fine, I'm tough, no one needs to worry about me. And it's like the music is like, oh, wow, like you're really vulnerable, you know? So I'm excited to share that. I've sung at probably 5 events now, and I'm going to start warming up my voice and doing more of that stuff. And yeah, I'll probably be dropping a new song or two in the next few months and doing maybe a mini music video for one of them. And I'll definitely share them with you when they come out. There's one song on Spotify. It's called Touch My Skin.
Ooh, let me write that down. Touch my skin. It sounds so sensual.
It's sensual and sad.
Okay. Sensual and sad.
You're like,
Get,
oh, it sounds like a
get the
new song.
Kleenex.
Yeah, maybe.
So I have to ask you, what is up next for you? Because you, I mean, even since when we first met, I can already feel like your power increasing, like your inner power.
Mm.
It's shifted. And I know personally why, but even more so, you're just showing up with so much more conviction and clarity in who you are as a woman. And I love seeing it. So I want to honor that. It's a beautiful thing to see. And this has only been really one short year when you really think about
Mhm.
it. We're in April 2026. So yeah, it's only been a short year. So what's on the agenda for the next rise with Deidre?
So if I'm being radically honest, which is my, that's who I am, but I don't always share everything that's going on behind the scenes in my life. But this last year has been a year of all of these different parts of me wanting to come forward. And I'm like, I've been in this battle. And I think a lot of creatives go through this and entrepreneurs go through this of like, oh, I need to box myself into one thing. And oh, I have to ride out this thing for the next 5 years. And there's been all of that kind of coming to the surface. And I've been the duality of really choosing what my path is moving forward. And my path moving forward is I'm not boxing myself in. Yes, I have an incredible program that I help leaders get on stages and scale their businesses and tell their stories. And I love that. And I'm going to keep doing it. And I'm going to keep bringing that forward. And I have this musical album that wants to come out of me on love and relationship and two more books. One's for men and one's for women. And I'm going to launch that probably in the next 12 months and do a music and book tour. And, like I have a lot of spiritual gifts where I was given gifts of where I can see things in people's bodies and, people who have passed away talk to me. And I've been, I have a lot of healing gifts that I've had at a very young age. And I have a lot of passions and a lot of things that I love. And I'm not going to just do one of them and just tell people one story. I'm going to bring all of it forward. And the people that are for me in those arenas can come forward with what feels aligned for them. And one thing that has become so clear for me, and it's been there for years, but I didn't have the courage to step forward with it because I had my own blocks, my own stories, my own shame in the way and programming. I'm here to be a voice for women and stand up for women everywhere. And I want to bring women together to heal, to protect themselves, and, really bring wisdom to the table for younger women. And I also want to be a voice for creating change in the world with what's going on for violence against women. So there's a lot of different things. I see myself creating a movie in the future for my upcoming book. There's so many different projects, but I think the underlying thing of what's coming next, it's just more of all of me versus trying to just bring one thing out so that people understand me because I'm not here to be perfectly understood by everyone and I'm here to fully express myself. And I love that for me, but for so long I was like, oh no, like, you're an intuitive and dead people talk to you and you can see disease in people's bodies and dolphins talk to you and you're probably going to want to go work with dolphins for so many months and, Hawaii and, all this stuff. It's like, I'm going to do all of it and simultaneously and let people figure it out, let people digest what they want, let people think what they want of me. I'm no longer filtering any part of who I am for the world. And that's really come full circle for me in this last year.
Amen, sister. Amen. I could not, I mean, I want to like ring a bell to that. So you and I have talked about this in detail, and I love that you're honoring your intuition, that you're honoring yourself fully right now. And this is where we can get so caught up in giving away our power for others' validation or for others' lens to give us the go ahead to do whatever that looks like. And so while I think it's so important to have great mentors and coaches and these amazing rooms and masterminds and all the things, they're so, so, so good. I don't want to minimize that. And at the same time, I truly believe where the real secret sauce is at is just what you described. It's honoring yourself. It's honoring you so fully to where you don't have to explain yourself why you may have 4, 5, 6, 7 plus things on the plate that are so passionate for you. Why do you need to pick one thing? You pick one thing, you pigeon yourself. And I know so many leaders are like, that's ridiculous. You should only focus on one thing. And what I don't believe is talked about enough is so many of these different buckets actually serve one another. I know in my line of work, I have 3 to 4, and they all serve each one. And everybody who's ever worked with me has gone in each bucket, right? So I'm so grateful that you brought that up, because it's not just one arena, and only you can decide what that looks like, and should decide, by the way.
Yeah. I love that you just mentioned the buckets, because the thing is, I'm always speaking to the same person. I'm just speaking to the same person who's having different experiences. So I attract people who are very spiritually connected. Like, I work with change makers, leaders, visionaries, healers. I work with people who are about planetary change and don't want to play small. And it just depends on where they're at. Hey, you want to work on your relationship? Here's a book. Hey, you want to do this? Here's potentially a retreat. Who knows? Here's this program that helps you get on stages and get visible and scale your business. It just depends on where they're at in their journey. But yeah, a big part of me, and I had this aha moment, I continue to have it lately. It's been like this big awakening. It's like, no, I am not like everyone. And that's actually what makes me unique. And that's what makes you unique. And everyone who's listening to this, everyone is unique. And you can market yourself in a business and still be super successful. You can be super successful with your business and do multiple things. There is no limit. That's an illusion. That's an old paradigm. That's somebody from back in the day who made up a rule, and people are still talking about it, and they're playing by those old set of rules, and they're still regurgitating it, and that's their reality, but it's not mine and it's not yours. And I think that we need to be a little bit more self-expressed and liberated in how we create and run our businesses.
I couldn't agree more. Thank you for sharing that. Well, I'm going to wrap with Dare to be Deidre. It's a rapid fire round, Dare to be Deidre. There's no overthinking, no editing, just the first thing that comes up. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right, let's go. Morning person or night owl?
Night owl.
Coffee or matcha?
Coffee.
Ocean or mountains?
Ocean.
The book that changed your life?
Louise Hay's You Can Heal Your Life. I think that's what it's called.
One word that describes you 10 years ago?
Courageous.
One word that describes you right now?
Expressed.
The quality you look for in a person?
Depth.
Biggest plot twist in your story so far?
That I am a butterfly and I am meant to go to all of these different places, and I'm not meant to be known for just one thing. I'm meant to go always trust my intuition and go to where I feel called.
Love that. What do you know for certain?
Wow. What I know for certain is our soul communicates to us through symptoms of disease. And if we're not listening, our soul will continue to knock and yell. And I do believe that a lot of sickness is because we're not honoring our soul. And when we get into alignment with our soul and take action, we have the power to heal ourselves.
So good. What are you still figuring out?
Social media. I'm like, how do we put all this stuff on social media in a fun way that makes sense? Then, yeah, let's say social media because that's a real thing. I'm like figuring out how I want to play on that platform.
True. The thing people misunderstand about alignment.
About alignment. Oh, that it feels good all the time and that it's easy. It's usually not easy when it comes to big life decisions and changes. Yeah.
True. Spirituality or religion, and why?
Spirituality. I have dabbled in everything. And I believe that our greatest access point to truth is based on a lot of our own life experiences. And I remember coming down to earth before I actually woke up in this body and was born. So I remember a lot of things from my past lives, and I know things that is considered ancient wisdom that I just know for no good reason. And those are the nuggets that have brought me down certain paths to go deeper into. And although I do like religion in a lot of ways, there's a lot of good things about it. It's it's too boxed in for me, and I don't belong in a box personally. Yeah.
The last thing that made you cry.
When I shared my story on social media. Well, when I recorded it the first time. Yeah. So I cried telling the story and then I was like, whoa, that was really vulnerable. I don't think I'm going to post that. And then I recorded it again. So that would be the last time I cried. That was last week.
The last thing that made you laugh until it hurt.
Oh, man. Okay, so this is a really funny story. This is the last thing I remember, but there could be more. Is my mom years ago had to get a hip replacement. This was like over 10 years ago. This is just the first thing that came forward. And so she really wanted me and my brothers to be home for the weekend back in BC to spend time with her because she was really nervous about it. And she was in a wheelchair. She wasn't supposed to really walk before the surgery. And my brother, he got some like, I don't know, shatter or some sort of like weed extract and he made some brownies. And my brother, he's amazing, but I don't think he paid attention to how much he poured into them. Okay. So my mom was cut this huge piece, but I guess she was having a glass of wine already. So she didn't have any, thank God. Otherwise, she probably would no longer be with us. And so I have a very, very small amount. I literally just do this to the top of it. I just swipe my finger to the top of the brownies when they're wet and I have a little lick. And then I end up going to the convenience store when I was, visiting my parents that night. So I go to the convenience store. The lady at the store is talking to me, it feels like for days. And I just remember being like, I was getting nail polish in a magazine or something and going back to my parents. I drive home and I'm like, wow, that woman had a lot to say and I'm tired. I tried to paint my toenail, couldn't do it. So I go lay down in my parents' spare bedroom and I'm just staring at the ceiling and my mom rolls by in her wheelchair and she's like, hey, did it hit you yet? And all of a sudden the whole roof like swirled and I was like, oh my gosh, like I think I'm really high right now, right? Oh man. So I like walk down their hallway and my parents have like a really big house. Everything's open concept. I'm walking like tippy toeing behind my parents' couch, trying not to be seen like a cat, like on my feet, but like, you know how cats are when they're trying to like, not be seen. Anyways, long story short, I broke down laughing. And then the rest of the night, I was in the kitchen talking about I don't even know what, and my whole family was around me laughing all the time. I was bursting laughing. They were laughing. I was super high, couldn't get out of bed the next day. And my mom has like these one-liners that are really funny. And she forgot about her surgery because I was basically putting on a show the whole night for my whole family. So I remember laughing so hard, I felt like I couldn't breathe.
Oh my God. The best belly laughs ever, right? It's so good.
Quite the story.
If your life had a theme song right now, what is it?
A theme song. What would the theme song be? Oh, there's a theme song that I really like. I don't know who sings it, but it's called This Is Me. Da, 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 da. As in, like, this is me, like I am me, and this is my path, and this is where I'm going. This is where I have been. It's just like, this is me. Yeah.
The mentor who changed everything.
Yeah, I'm gonna say Satyan Raja. He was a mentor of mine years ago when I did my master coach training when I was going through a lot of things about 7 years ago. And we just had a call the other day and I'm like, he is such a great guy. He is a stand for women. And he's one of those guys that are calling out men right now. And just like the work that I did with him for over a year completely changed my life and really got me into alignment with my deeper purpose. Yeah.
Mm, love it. What does your soul need more of right now?
I think I just need to have a little bit more fun. The winter in Canada, especially Eastern Canada, has like been brutal, and I've been wearing black every day. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I just wear black all winter, and like I hibernate. So I need some more color. So I ordered a bunch of new outfits, which is fun. And I think I just need to have more fun and like go on some trips and stuff with some friends. I think I just need some more playful time.
Well, there is an incredible Greece trip coming up this September.
I've been told. I was looking for it.
What are you done tolerating?
I am done tolerating anyone who does not respect my boundaries. And I'm not talking about big boundaries. I'm not talking about, anything really negative, but people who just don't get me and don't want to get me or don't respect my nose or, for example, if someone wants to give me advice and I'm like, no, thank you. And they just continue, like, I'm just not tolerating that. I'll just walk away. Like, I don't need anyone in my field that I haven't agreed to have in my field in any way. Yeah.
Right there with you. The story you are most proud of living.
Mm, yeah, I would just say choosing myself. I remember going to Burning Man years ago and just feeling really liberated and choosing myself and making my own damn rules. That was the very first book I wrote. I never published it, but it was really just about this course correction of making my own damn rules at the time and living through that and choosing myself regardless of what's going on, and that completely changed my life, and I'm really proud of that past version of me for doing that.
Hmm. And our last one, final question. If you could whisper one thing to every woman and man who is playing it safe right now, what would it be?
Well, I'd say stop playing it safe. I would say the thing that scares you the most is the thing that you should do. And the thing that you should do now because 5, 10, 20 years down the road, you're just going to have regrets and wish you started sooner. So just do the thing, rip off the band-aid, get the accountability partner, jump in with both feet, and you'll figure it out. And things will work out better than you could have ever imagined.
Boom. Love it. Thank you so much, Dee.
Thank you for having me. This has been so fun.
Well, and we really need to do an in-person one. I know we've been talking about it for a long time. So when you want to get out of Canada and you want to come down to even Arizona, we can sit and just do a round two. I would love that.
I love that. I'm in.
All right, let's do it. For more on Deidre Sirianni, please check the show notes and to connect with her. Thank you. Mwah.